to call the meeting to order, and I would like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to tell myself and everybody else to please silence any electronics or turn them off. Okay, we'll start with the roll call, please.
Councilor Brennan,
Here.
Councilor Laban,
I am here.
Councilor Peeler,
Here.
Councilor Grimaldi,
Here.
Councilor Gilat,
Here.
Councilor Petropoulos,
Here.
Councilor Morocco,
Here.
Councilor Whitfield,
Here.
Mayor Valentino.
Here. Next, I have the honor, and I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance tonight. I have the honor of recognizing one of the greatest people in the city of Geneva who's left a legacy. So I'd like members of the Kevin Powers family and those, I'm going to try to juggle the microphone and the proclamation at the same time. If you could come forward, please. And we have cameras all over the place, so
there's nowhere safe to stand.
I would like you to turn and face the cameras because it's more important for the audience and the public to see you than it is for me, even though I've seen you and I really appreciate you being here. So whereas the city of Geneva recently lost a valued member and friend on July 17, 2024 with the death of Assistant Fire Chief Kevin J. Powers, a leader, an exemplary member of our community and fire department with an extensive and accomplished service record. And whereas 70 years ago, on September 7th, Assistant Kevin J. Powers became a member of the Geneva Fire Department, and it was a very interesting story, where he exemplified his dedication by filling numerous positions within his company. These included being Nestor Hose Company Recording Secretary from 1958 to 1960, Captain from 1960 to 1962, Vice President from 1964 to 1967, and Treasurer from 1968 to 2023. He also acted as Safety Officer, Fire Prevention Coordinator, Chairman of the Geneva Firemen's Parade, and the three-company Fire Seminar Coordinator for many years on top of those roles. And whereas outside the fire scenes and safety, his passion was planning the Geneva Parade for nearly 35 years, which took month-longs of organization to create proud display of first responders for the public to enjoy. Whereas he will be remembered for his passion, selflessness, and years of knowledge that stood out amongst the members of the Geneva Fire Department. And whereas through those contributions, Assistant Chief Powers not only served the city of Geneva and the people within it, but also an unreplaceable asset to the fire department and the members within it. He used his experience to teach many individuals by demonstrating his passion for the fire service and the pride of those he worked alongside. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Steve Valentino, on behalf of the Geneva City Council, do hereby proclaim September 7th, 2024 as Assistant Chief Kevin J. Powers Day in the city of Geneva, New York, in memory of his 70 years of dedication to the fire service. Join us in taking the time to celebrate Assistant Chief Powers' legacy of improving the Geneva Fire Department while making the city of Geneva a safer place. And I thank you very much. The room doesn't get filled like this too often, so it just shows a lot about Kevin's presence in the city of Geneva, so thank you. And we'll pause for a second because I believe there'll probably be a little bit of an exit. I'm not sure. You're more than welcome to stay as long as you'd like. No problem at all.
Don't leave, Jimmer. Don't leave, Jimmer.
Where's the
Thank you
after
very
party?
much. David, you got a tough act to follow.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's emotional. Okay.
Starting to tilt the other way now.
So next we have on our agenda a presentation by the Planning and Economic Development Overview presented by our Director, David West.
Thank you. And Amy, can you switch the input?
Sure. I might need Zach's help because I can't find it.
So there we go. Perfect. Fantastic. So my presentation is going to be on the screen over here, which will save you from looking at my face. You can choose either one, back and forth. So I want to thank you guys for the time to be here. We've just passed a very important, to me, date, which is the 1-year anniversary for me being hired by the City of Geneva. Thank you. I think it's a good time to take a step back and look at what I was brought on to do, what I've been working on, the work of my department, and where we're going from here. And I think I like to think fun, but you may agree. Way to start with that is looking at the job description. So this is what I was brought on to do. These are the words, and I'm going to step through. There's 2 sections, the description and the roles and responsibilities. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about accomplishments. So the Director of Planning and Economic Development is a key member of the leadership team. They have the responsibility for the overall function of the department. They're empowered to provide oversight on all matters related to community development, economic development, and planning for the City of Geneva, for issues related to business development, zoning, housing, tourism, transportation, community engagement, energy, and sustainability. The work involves connecting industries, community members, state and local officials, and others to maintain and invest in the city. The director works in coordination with community members and city staff to develop and implement planning strategies to advance the City of Geneva. The department's built of a small team, smaller than I realized at the time, and is responsible for grant management, community engagement, economic development, neighborhood and housing programs. The director must possess the ability to supervise and support employee success with strong negotiation skills, leadership, professional judgment, and decision making. There's a lot of stuff in there. And I think it's a lot more than most people realize, especially based on some of the comments that I get. So that we're really broad at duties and responsibilities. The responsibilities in this position include overseeing and supervising grant administration and program administration related to community and economic development and neighborhood housing programs. Supporting work related to land use planning and programs, including assisting with zoning administration and comprehensive planning. And supervising, developing, and implementing citywide economic development, community development, neighborhood and housing strategies, plans, and activities. The position provides technical assistance to facilitate public and private development projects, supervises the departmental team, managing a variety of activities, including personnel, budgeting, and staffing, works with the city manager to gather feedback from community members, elected officials, and others to address the city's community and economic development opportunities and challenges. And finally, is knowledgeable on the purpose, principles, terminology, and practices employed in municipal and community planning, community and commercial revitalization, and staying abreast of current legislation impacting the City of Geneva and our surrounding communities. That is the job as advertised. There's been a few other things added on, and I just wanted to point to a couple of them, which is being the executive director for the IDA and the LDC. These are two things that pay the city for the time of the director, which I think is important to note. In addition to these, some of the grant programs that we work on also provide payment to the city. So in addition to having that really broad set of responsibilities, this department also brings in funding to cover its own costs. One promise that I made in the hiring process was that I would always bring in at least double my salary in grants. We're well above that, but we're going to keep working to do more. As part of directing the IDA and the LDC, there's a large amount of compliance work that goes into that, as well as managing the monthly meetings and the assets and properties. So that includes the GEDC, the former American Can Factory. In the last year, we've brought in some great new tenants that I'm really excited about. The gymnastics gym is now in there, a great thing for kids in our community to do. We're also starting next month, have a lease with Element Winery that's bringing their production on site. And we're in negotiations with Finger Lakes Rail on moving their offices to our building, which I hope will also help us fill some of the rail-served spaces in that building. With the LDC, that involves managing the revolving loan fund, which we kind of sorted out and got rolling and gave our first loan recently to a downtown business that I'm really excited about. And they're working hard on ramping up their community projects, which will include sponsoring Drumstock this weekend. So I hope you'll check that out. And also increasing the ways for people to plug in and volunteer for things they want to see in the city. So what resources do we have for all of these great things that we want to accomplish? The toolbox is not big, but it's big of heart. So we have staff. We've had 2 full-time staff. For part of my time here, there was an additional kind of 1/3 of staff time. Soon that will be 2/3, essentially. I'm very excited. We're bringing on a new staff person starting at the end of the month who will be our grant manager, which is a very important role we'll see in a minute. In addition to that, in the budget is a small amount of funding for outside contractors. That helps us prepare for grants, do grant writing. That is the bulk of the tools. It's our time and then a small amount of money for working with others. We've also this year leveraged property. So we've worked to get property back on the tax rolls, selling it and leveraging it for new development. I'm really happy with the way that's gone. And we have some more specific exciting work to do on that with bigger properties. We've also been working with volunteers, and this has come in a few ways. We worked with HWS interns this summer, had 2 great young people working in our office, and working with community groups. So we've done a lot of work with Blueprint Geneva, who's been very successful in grants. We are increasing our partnerships. I've got a list of all the partner organizations. There's a lot of coordination between these groups. We're currently in the middle of, or near the end of our strategic planning process for economic development, which again is one part of this department's oversight. That plan includes the Geneva Business Improvement District, the Local Development Corporation, the IDA, and also the department. Beyond that, we coordinate on a daily and weekly basis with Ontario County Economic Development, Cornell Agritech Center for Excellence for Food and Agriculture, Hobart and William Smith, Finger Lakes Community College, the Chamber of Commerce, Visit Finger Lakes, Geneva 2030, Blueprint Geneva, and businesses small and large. We've met during this year with the largest businesses in the community and many of the smallest businesses of the community. So in 1 year, the focus really has been getting organized, building momentum, and making progress. there was a lot of work to do getting in the door, really picking up things that needed to be cleaned up, solving puzzles, getting into mysteries. But I'm pretty happy with the things that we have accomplished. And one of the first big ones was wrapping up the 6-year-long zoning update process. That was done within the first 4 months on the job. Passing short-term rental legislation. We now have an engineering study at the GEDC underway to understand what's needed for that building to be successful in the future. We also, a few weeks ago, kicked off the rec complex study, and we're wrapping up the economic development strategic plan that involved, I'll say, some great community engagement. We had a really wonderful meeting, albeit a hot one, at the Bizzuto Center. We'll be heading into another large meeting towards the end of this month, the 25th or 26th of September, and we'll also be rolling that out at the library's, I think, Community Fun Day, Family Fun Day. That'll be that weekend. They're having a block party outside the library on Saturday. Our key economic development achievements, we managed $150,000 in direct support to 7 local businesses through the Microenterprise Assistance Program. It's 3 existing businesses and 4 new businesses. All of those will be opening soon, and some of them I'm really excited about. One of them is also our first revolving loan fund recipient, Total Recall, right across the street from City Hall. That will be a combination novelty store, arcade, all around really cool place to hang out. We brought in a $1.5 million Restore New York grant for mixed use, most of the block at the corner of Exchange and Castle. Looking forward to getting that project started. We have a kickoff meeting with them this week. Our department also permitted 95 events this year, 38% increase over last year in community events. Our farmers market had 97 vendors this year, up from 72 last year. And our SNAP program at the market has increased almost 3 times. I expect it'll be over 3 times by the end of the season. In grants, we've participated in a lot of applications and been successful in some. Many we're still waiting on, but the range of grants that we're not only applying for but also managing is extreme. I tried to fit all of the current open grants that we're managing on the page, and the text had to be really small here because you should note that each of these programs requires a different kind of reporting, whether it's quarterly, monthly, annually. Getting a grant is a lot of work, but managing the grant is a lot more work. And the hours that go into that really are a full position and require working across the various departments. We also had a variety of housing accomplishments this year that I'm excited about. We're bringing Habitat for Humanity for Greater Rochester back to Geneva. It's been a while since they built anything here, and they bought lots that will allow them to build 2 homes soon, and they want to build many more. So getting those starter homes in our community, home ownership for people who may not be able to afford things on the open market, or at least not things in good condition, I think is going to be great. Been working with Finger Lakes Community Action. It was just announced that they brought in $4.5 million for the Geneva Housing Authority for renovation of their apartment building. They've committed over $100,000 to a homeowner rehab program, assuming we win it. And they also brought in money for a small fixes program serving our community. We applied for a community development block grant homeowner rehab program. This would allow us to significantly renovate 7 owner-occupied homes in the city. And we plan to apply for this every year and keep it going as a city-run program. This is one of the programs that also brings in money for its own management. So it pays for itself in terms of staff time, in addition to being direct support to community members. And we also delivered IDA incentives to the DeSales project with 17 market rate apartments. That was over $140,000 in mortgage tax exemptions through through the IDA. And that project does not have a pilot in place, so it'll be fully taxable, not only providing housing, but also increasing our tax base significantly. That's a little bit about what we've done. What's next? So things that I think are exciting that are coming up is continuing to grow the micro enterprise program. We just passed our deadline for businesses to submit their receipts. I have a giant pile of receipts on my desk. We're getting those submitted and getting the businesses paid back. And as soon as that happens, we're going to apply for more. It's a cyclical program. We can apply as soon as the money's reimbursed. And we're going to keep that rolling and keep funding for small businesses opening up, because we know that that's really necessary for getting going. We are really hopeful about our housing repair program that I just mentioned through CDBG. That would be run inside the department, as well as the collaborations for similar programs with our partners. Redevelopment of the OEO site. We have the draft, final draft, I hope, of the request for qualifications for a preferred developer. My goal is that that's released next week, and that's looking really good. And following that, we'll be looking at for proposals for lots on Crystal Street. We're kind of chipping away a little bit at a time. We've got the Foundry coming after that. We've got some IDA-owned parcels, Middle Street parcels, things that were, I think, too important to just throw in an auction and hope that someone good buys them, that we need to develop carefully and work with people who are ready to work with the city. So I'm glad to see those going forward. The LDC is rebooting the neighborhoods program. They're looking at micro grants for neighborhood celebrations to reinvigorate the 11 neighborhoods that the city worked with previously. This will help people with just a little extra push to do more things in their neighborhood. I hear all the time people want more things to do, more community building, more reasons to know their neighbors. And I think that's a great way to do it through that group. We're working on a strategy for better marketing of the city. We were just talking about a group of HWS interns through the Bizzuto Center who are going to help both the IDA and the LDC from that perspective. And it's also been a priority for those groups. And one of the key recommendations from our consultant on the Economic Development Strategic Plan is to do more targeted, specific marketing. And the thing that takes up a lot of energy and really builds all of these things is continuing to make more connections with partners. A lot of the work that we're doing is not something that I'm doing by myself. It's collaboration across municipalities, working with the town of Geneva, with our corporate and nonprofit partners, and also being more involved at the county. So I have two kind of guiding things that are leading the work of my department when we think about where we're going, where we're focusing. And those two things are improving the quality of life and increasing prosperity. Improving the quality of life, I like to think about it as making life here more fun. We've had some great successes there this year, all of the events we've had. I'm excited about where we've been with increasing access to the lakefront, just getting more people out and having more businesses that are more fun as well. And then prosperity. We know that we need to be growing our tax base. We've done that this year with the first property sales. All those went well, and the next step is redevelopment, getting projects that have a lot of value to add to our tax base, and also to stop population loss. We hear that that's a problem for our businesses. The biggest issue that they run into is they don't have enough employees. The housing isn't there, and we need to make sure that we have the people for Geneva to not shrink, but grow and be a prosperous place in the future. With that, I'm not going to jump into, I have my whole presentation on how economic development works. Some of you got that at our strategy work session. I'm happy to talk about that if folks have questions, but I think this is a good overview of where we've been for the last year, and I'll just open it to your questions.
So no questions at this point, but Director West, thank you very much for your efforts, and your anniversary is good. You didn't run away on us. We have worked hard to look at economic development and rebuilding our economic development department along with our code enforcement department. I think that's been a challenge in the last, I'd say, 4 to 6 years, and I see things headed in the right direction. I like your overarching goals. I think they are high level, and I think they made a lot of sense for the city of Geneva. So we really appreciate your efforts. And if there's anything, we talk about state and federal commitments. If there's any assistance myself or this council can give you to kind of improve those connections and grow them, we'd be happy to help out. Councilors, any comments or questions? Councilor Lavin?
Dave, I'm, as you know, a big fan of your work, and I'm engaged with you often. My concern, the only concern I have, is that that's a wide panoply of things, probably more than anybody could master on all of them. And this is a theme you'll hear from me tonight and in the past, that I still think that there's not enough true guidance and priority setting from the council to you about the relative worth of some of the many projects we face. It's the redevelopment of the Town and Country Plaza, the coaxing the people at Geneva on the Lake, and the American Legion project, for example, are clearly something that the community should be aware of and getting behind and encouraging these people. And I still think a committee where monthly we could sit and see your priorities and hear the details of the grants. Grants are, I run them myself. They're both art and science, and they can use community support and appreciation. And so I think one thing we can do is help you figure out whether the plaza and some of these projects that are hanging by a thread require more community support from us, and more priority for you than, as nice as it is, the Old American Can Place has been 40 years of knocking heads against the wall, and the return on investment for some of those things, I still have questions about for the next year, but I appreciate your work greatly, and I think it's great that Geneva has somebody like you doing this. So.
Thank you, Councilor.
Okay. Great, thank you again. Moving on in the agenda, we have a discussion for senior exemption programs presented by our city manager Hendricks and Assessor Rados.
And David's going to control our PowerPoint on this one. So this came up in the last discussion. I'll start it off, but I do have Tina here, Tina Rados, our assessor, who will really dive into more of this. So just to start it off, I wanted to talk about what we're dealing with. So the taxable assessed value is the total amount of value all of our properties in the city come up with. And so for 2023, we're talking 2023 for 2024. That's how we'll describe what this process would do, although we're looking at it for 2025, which would use 2024 value. That always gets a little confusing. Anyone that works with me knows I often mess up dates. It's because I live in 3 to 4 years at all times. So we use 2023 assessed value to create the 2024 budget. That's what I can give you real numbers on as we start to think about what we're doing in 2024 for 2025. So that's our taxable assessed value, 488 million plus some 100,000s additional. That is, taxable assessed value is assessed value for all real property after the subtraction of any exempt properties. David, if you can go to the next slide. So in 2023, with the city current exemptions, that's the taxable assessed value. School district with all exemptions is about 492 million, 493 million. 2023 with county exemptions is 489 million. That's with all exemptions. We're not talking just senior exemptions. That's all exemptions on the city parcels. Next slide. So tax levy, we've had this discussion a few times. This goes into how we get to where we are on the budget. To get the tax levy, we add up all the expenses that we're going to incur as a city, and then we subtract all the revenue that we project. The balance of the budget, what we can't pay, is called the tax levy, and that's what we take from our taxpayers to balance our budget. So our total spending in 2024 is 19.5 million. The total revenues outside of the local taxes was 14 million. The tax levy in 2024 is 8.4 million. So that's how we got the tax levy. Next slide, David. So the tax rate is achieved by dividing the total amount of the money that has to be raised from property tax, the tax levy, by the taxable assessed value of real property in the municipality. So in 2024, the city tax rate was $17.25 per 100,000, or per thousand, sorry. So 17.25 is what we call the tax rate. You'll hear us say that very often. Had we adopted the senior exemption at the school district level, and everyone at the school district level chose to participate in our exemption program, your tax rate would have been $17.27, so 2 cents more. If we adopted the senior exemption at the county level, the rate would have been $17.27, also that 2 cents more. And then I'm going to turn it over to Tina, but I will tell you the little asterisk says, if you are to consider the senior exemption, we are recommending that you follow the county's exemption pattern. That would have meant for your homeowners, everyone that didn't receive that tax exemption, their tax rate would have gone up 2 cents. Tina, do you want to add to this a little bit more? And
in addition to the, right now we're looking at 24 individuals benefiting from the low-income senior at the city level. The county and the school level, in 2023, there were 38 individuals. So there would be an additional there that are benefiting at the city level that are not currently. We, along with adopting the county level, the county has also started to count the IRA distributions in the calculation, and that is something that we recommend as well. Just following that same format. That way we have a little bit of direction as to where this is going, how many people are benefiting at that new level.
So for the public's benefit, do we have the current annual income exemption levels to look at real quick? Is that something we can put up? Because I think that was important to look at what the city was doing, what the school was doing, and what the county was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been asked by seniors previously, why are we lower than the school? Why are we lower than the county? And the big question was, what was going to be the impact to the city and the other taxpayers?
Right.
And I think, for us, I think it makes good sense to create parity across the level for seniors. We just we're a little nervous on what that impact was going to be. And I really appreciate this. It makes a lot of sense. It's digestible. But I think at least for the seniors out there, it'd be nice to have them see what the change is going to be if we approve it.
so what I'll provide for you is a potential resolution that you could amend the agenda to include that would show you the county's exemption rates. I don't have the school district in front of me because one of the pieces too that would be added to this is the, Tina, I'm gonna need your help on.
The IRA.
The IRA, and so the school district does not currently include the IRA distribution. We would recommend that you follow the county. It does include the distribution. It became a challenge to use this school districts because of that, and so we did put this forward as the potential resolution. But for the residents, what that would mean is for incomes from $0 to $18,000, they would receive a 50% reduction. From $18,001 to $18,999.99, they would have a 45% reduction. $19,000 to $19,999.99, 40%. $20,000 to $29,999, 35%. $21,000 to $21,899.99, 30%. $21,900 to 799, 25%, 23,800 to 23,699.99, 20%, 23,700 to 24,599.99, 15%, 24,000 to 600 to 25,499.99, 10%, 25,500 to 26,399, 5%, and then 26,400, they would receive no additional reduction. Currently, we're much lower than that, and that was provided, I think, in your work session as well.
And I think what it does is it actually makes it a little bit easier, not only for seniors, but for the accounting purposes and the tax roll to kind of be in parity with the county, which makes good sense.
Yeah, there'd be
Counselor-
multiple resolutions.
Yep. Counselors, any questions at this point? Counselor Peeler, I see.
My only question is why didn't we get that breakdown that we asked for a couple weeks ago about how these impacts would happen? We clearly all asked for it.
It was provided at that meeting, is what you were requested, and then the other piece is here.
No, there was a question actually between the total assessed value and the levy impact, and that wasn't broken down, and I think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think we were looking at numbers that were very large, and we wanted to know what the tax.
The real down.
Yeah, what
impact
the
was,
real
yeah.
value was.
So, I'm very confused.
I am as well. I'm not sure what we're asking for.
So this is the taxable assessed value, the changes are up here right now. So you see the 487.996079, that would be the school district total assessed value. And then if you look at the county, that would be the total assessed value if we adopted those.
So would I take a wild guess if I did math and took 2 cents times the 8 million? That would be the impact, the 8,428,000.
What are we trying to calculate? I
Just
don't-
so if
A revised
just-
levy.
Steve,
So the levy wouldn't
The
change.
levy's
Right,
levy.
right.
So
pays
it's,
it?
so the revised tax rate?
No,
That's
that's,
Two
That's
cents.
what we
The
see.
loss
Yeah, 2
of the
cents.
loss of
2
tax
cents.
revenue, I
We
think
won't
is the
have
question.
loss of tax
you won't have loss of tax
And
revenue.
that was our question, I
Yeah,
believe.
it's a tax shifting exemption, that's why you're seeing the rate
Yes.
go from 1725, hypothetically with this situation, to 1727. So it is shifting the tax burden slightly and making that rate a little
2
bit
cents.
higher by 2
Per
cents.
thousand.
But you are, a lot more seniors will benefit at that.
yeah.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Not a lot.
So, in reality up here, if we're looking at a $150,000 assessed house, it's gonna cost $3.
Yes, you could do
That's the easiest way to look at it.
Thank you,
And-
I appreciate that quick math.
There you go.
Yeah, hey, I do it all the time. And the other thing is that right now, our exemption starts at 20%.
Right.
So when we're doing resolutions for this, we're gonna have to do one that gives us the dollar figure of what we're starting at. We're gonna have to do one to increase our levels from 20 to 5. And then if you're gonna do the IRA thing, you kinda gotta throw that in,
Right.
which I hate because it's just confusing as all get out to a senior. And they've changed everything this year anyway.
They
It's-
have, yeah.
And half the assessors aren't using the new figures, so it may change in the next couple of years as they understand more of what it is. But, so we need at least 2 resolutions, one for the dollar figure, one for the percentage. And we have, you can pass these and later on decide, as we get more information on the new numbers, because we're having all new numbers coming out. You can always add a resolution for the IRA part.
Go ahead. Yep, city manager. And
So-
Counselor Peeler.
The potential resolution that I'm providing today, if you wanted to amend the agenda, just puts the public hearing on the next, and then we'll work to have those corresponding resolutions. What it does do is include all of those things. It includes the scale, it includes language to be changed in the city ordinance, and include that individual retirement account distribution. So it puts it all there, and then we would work with our legal team to then modify it. But this would put the public hearing for the October meeting. What I will also do, though, is as I build the budget, would build in the potential for a change in taxable assessed value.
Thank you. I'm not necessarily opposed to this. I just want to be able to explain it to my constituents in real dollar amounts, because sometimes percentages and dollar amounts can be misunderstood.
Yep.
Can be misunderstood. So I think that's a fair thing. Also, can we jump back 2 slides? Because I was having a hard time
Your
understanding
math,
how
you didn't like the math?
I didn't.
One forward.
Or one forward. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how 19 minus 14 is 8.4. Or is that not what I'm looking at right there? So with the spending versus the revenue equals.
There's a wrong number in there.
Okay, there is a wrong number in there.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I'm not the best at math, but I'm that good at math.
No, there is a wrong number in
Okay.
there. Tina and I reviewed all the other slides today, but that
Not
one.
that one.
So there is a wrong number in there. I can
Okay.
update it for you.
Because we should be able to add 8.4 to 14.07 and get 19, right?
Yeah.
That's how I did the quick math. And I was like,
So-
there should be a 2 over
Get
there.
much better assessments that way, though.
Yes. Yeah, we could do great. If you look at the
Fine.
first page of your 2024 budget book, it has those correct numbers in
Okay,
there.
fine. Okay.
Any other counselors, comments? Okay, thank you very much for the work. I appreciate it, and I would like to, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add the proposed public hearing and adoption of the amended levels of real property tax exemptions for senior citizens on the real property tax law, section 467. So I will make that motion, and I need a second. Counselor Grimaldi. And clerk, please call the roll to amend the agenda to add the proposed public hearing.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Laban?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye, and we'll add that as number D
Carried.
in new business.
Okay.
I forgot one question. Does this impact STAR or anything like that?
No, STAR is a completely separate exemption.
Great, thank you.
Good question.
I'm going to move on to the next item, which is a zoning change from MDR, multi-density residential, I think. CB5 by Director West. I really like calling you David, but I'll call you Director West. I don't know which one you like better.
From a big family, you can call me whatever you want.
Okay.
So I'm going to get up on the screen the zoning map here. Excuse my logistics.
Yeah, that's something.
Oh, boy.
Relax.
There we go. Sort of.
Which one?
Pointer in your hand, keep getting confused.
I may be crashing the mainframe here.
Related to the
That's all
Ruby
right.
Todd this weekend. Wonderful. Really good.
So, I'm sure you all read the briefing, but what I wanted to talk to you about tonight is some opportunities and to discuss broadly more opportunities to extend our most flexible zoning district. So CB5 is our downtown 5-story district. That's the brightest pink here in the middle of the screen. This zone allows a variety of business and housing uses up to 5 stories. It's essentially the most tax efficient kind of development that we allow within the city. When I am looking at downtown and the possibilities of growth, where development could happen, there are a few places that we, I think, have constrained ourselves a little bit, and it was a question from me to council because I wasn't involved in the original drafting of the map. If there are places that you would like to build in a little more flexibility to enable some more development, And I want it to be just a discussion, and then I would come back with a resolution in the future. But the edges of this zone have a few places that are a little funny, and I was only involved in one adjustment to this map, which was the inclusion of the OEO parcel here in the CB5. Other places that have development potential right now that I am looking at, that it makes sense to me to consider expanding this zone, include this block here, where we have kind of no step from the 5-story down to the medium density residential. And the medium density residential is much more restrictive. It only allows 2.5 stories, only, I think, up to 12 dwelling units in a building, and very few businesses are allowed. And here we have that piece coming out and cutting right into kind of our Main Street downtown fabric. When I say Main Street, I mean the type of buildings, not actual Main Street, because this is Castle Street. So this is one area where I think it would make sense to expand the CB5 and maybe the CB zone, depending on how comfortable you were with the opportunities at that site and its interface with the areas around it. So this is the Finger Lakes Times building, and it's most of that block is that single parcel. And it's relatively dense across the street to around here. You know, we're talking buildings that are next to each other, 3 stories, full street wall here. So you might consider rezoning the whole parcel. CB5 would be kind of the simplest thing. It could be the front half is CB5, and then there's a piece of the CB, or the back half could be stay in that medium density residential zone. That's one site that has a lot of potential, and we know that it's on the market. I think it would make sense to consider if we want to get a great project there. There's some other places along the edges of downtown that you could think about that doing similar. One is this parcel where we have a step down from the 5-story possibility, and this is the current ATM drive-through. It seems like a key redevelopment possibility someday in the future. It's not on the market, it's not for sale, but it does have Great Lake views. It seems like something you'd think about. We could also think about looking at the north end of downtown, where, for example, the IDA owns this parcel, looking at selling it for redevelopment. You know, right now it could be 3 stories. It's a lot easier to build if you can get the additional density. So I'm interested in your thoughts about where you would like to see more. If we're comfortable with the lines the way they are, I'd also just like that feedback, and that would be useful.
Okay, so the floor is open for discussion, and I'm going to start with your previous presentation talked about the 6-year trek that this and previous councils went on to update our 50-year-old zoning ordinance. And I think at that time when we passed that, we knew it wasn't just cast in stone. It was going to be a living document. We were going to come back and look at it. We were going to make changes as we went along. So I appreciate you coming back to us and looking for that feedback. I'm a big fan of listening, because I think it's important to listen. In that area where the Finger Lakes Times is, just taking a look at that up front and first. You know, when I look at that map and I see the yellow chunk in between the dark pink, I'm like, why? And it does look like an opportunity. So I would definitely be open to that. And I would like to, you know, as we talk about those other properties, do we take small bites, I think, or do we make bigger changes? I'm just trying to look for direction.
You know, I think it's always good to take a somewhat expansive look when we're looking to expand a zone to include all of the parcels that we would think would fit in that zone. It helps the kind of validity of the process to be like, we're not just doing this for one project, right? We're thinking at a larger perspective of, is the downtown core zone as big as it should be? And if not, having some sense of other parcels that belong there would be useful.
And I'm going to, just one more comment, and then I'm going to hand it over, because I hate taking control. You know, I think the other thing, when we look at those lighter pink parcels, like the Bicentennial Park
Mhm.
and down in the triangular where the ATM is, you know, I think one of the considerations is the view shed. So that has been one of the concerns historically, as people are a little upstream of this, is to how we impact the view shed of the lake from other current developed properties there. So I think that's one of the critical things we need to think about. Councilor Gillette.
I like it a lot because I like flexibility. Being landlocked the way we are and the issues we've all talked about, I think if we can put together a program where we can adjust zoning so we're more flexible and you have an opportunity to bring more stuff in or opportunities to bring more stuff, I think that's a great idea. I'm also, being in business, a little aggressive, like you seem to be. I'd like to see more of not just one parcel, but a bigger plan if we go that route. But I think being landlocked, and we need to keep moving forward. We're doing some great things tonight, and this just adds to it. I think it's awesome. So those are my thoughts.
You got Councilor Peeler and then Councilor Petropoulos.
I agree with Pete. I like flexibility. My spider sense tingles when we talk about building at 5 stories up. So I'm just curious to what that's going to look like and how it might impact the future of our community. I think many people are comfortable with some of the 3-story looks that we have downtown now. And as far as complete streets and other concepts that we tie into our comp plan and our zoning, I'd like to know how that kind of fits in. And so I think we should just keep the discussion going. I'm not opposed to any of this. I like the flexibility. I think if we gotta go up to grow, we can't grow out, we gotta grow up. I'd like to see how that's gonna look.
City Manager, and then we'll jump into Councilor Petropoulos.
Thanks. And I think one of the pieces to this discussion tonight, and I had to step out for a moment, but is really, this discussion is something that we can point back to as people are coming to David and to myself asking about the potential of purchasing a property, and they would like to do X, Y, or Z. We can also point back to this conversation that you're having so they can see where the council feeling is while we look at redeveloping some of the zoning language. So it could be a phased-in approach to at least garner what support they may or may not have for their projects.
So what you're saying are people are listening to us speak about this. Okay.
Councilor Petropoulos.
Well, I too like the idea of flexibility, particularly downtown. Of course, being a resident of that area, my concerns, if there are any, is that we don't compromise the present historical look of downtown in favor of something done high and on the cheap. We don't want to do that. I'd like to see more. I'm looking at those yellow spots too. I drive around, it's like, this could be something better. So yes, I am certainly looking forward to discussion about this. But, the caveat is let's not just, take the first buyer and, because I've seen other downtowns that could look nicer if a little more care was taken. So let's consider the overall impression we want to give to both residents and tourists. That's 3. We want to make sure residents, businesses, and tourists just like what they see. Let's keep that in mind, in the back of our head when we do entertain development, particularly if it faces, we don't want to build 5-story buildings blocking everything. But I can tell you right now, unless you're literally across the street from Exchange, you're not going to see the lake, because they're all 3-story buildings. Well, let's not put a shadow on it either. So let's think about these things as we're progressing. That's about all I got.
Councilor Lavin.
Dave, I love the idea, and I think that uncharacteristic of this community is we move slowly. I don't think we can move slowly at this. The time is now. There's interest in the Finger Lakes. There's development pressure. We don't have a lot of space. I think we should move quickly to send a signal to the community, to the wider community, that we're willing to consider things. We have a tendency of waiting for somebody to come in and then putting them through a ringer to see how they fit with everything. Right now, the winds of development are here, and I think the sooner we can do this, it doesn't box you in to take every project that comes and fits 5 stories, or How tall is the building, the old Seneca Hotel building, where the seniors live?
Probably 5,
Is that 5?
I believe it is.
5 or 6. Yeah.
Which one?
I think it's
Seven.
more than 5. It's more than 5.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah. And 7, 8.5. And I don't find that offensive at all in terms of, I said, but, and the asset that we have is everybody's asset, not just the people who live up on my ward and on South Main Street who want to, half of those people can't see the lake anyway because of trees. So I'm sensitive to the shed, but they don't own the lakefront. And,
Council Brennan.
I've been trying to find a reason not to rezone this, but I can't think of one. If you don't mind, I want to show you something. This is right here, this is the Finger Lakes Times property we're talking about here. This is one of the 17 buildings in the Historic Districts Commission, district rather. I will.
Thank you.
One of the buildings in the historic districts, because it's one of the 17 architectural spaces. So to protect history, you're right, I'm all for it. I'm not worried about the redevelopment of the Finger Lakes Times property. I have to say, I think it's a no-brainer to rezone it, that is. Because in its current condition, being in the MDR makes it just about impossible to redevelop. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna actually jump on the bandwagon with Councilor Lavin because I do think that the iron is hot and we should strike. And so I would love to see something come back sooner than later and, give us something to chew on quicker because I think not just that property, but the other properties you mentioned. Let us say yes or no to something. I think that's, we need a push every now and then.
Great. I will do that. And I was just going to note for folks who had questions about scale, both the YMCA building and the building across the street from that are 4 stories. That gives you a sense of, different buildings have different floor heights. So, this is 4 stories and this is 3 stories. They're almost the same because of different floor heights, but you're very much in the range there. And my experience, if you take people on the street, and I used to do this at a different place I worked, where there were some folks who thought that the difference between 3 and 4 was the end of the world. And I'd take them to a street corner where I knew that there was a 4-story and a 3-story and have them turn around and say, which side of the street is that end of the world height? Nobody knew. So it's a small difference. It is a difference, but we're in that range downtown.
I'm just looking for some rooftop restaurants or something like that. Any other counselors on this discussion?
Are we gonna discuss this more at a later date?
I think the direction, and please confirm, your direction is to Mr. West to come back with suggestions on changes to zoning, particularly in this area, or in these areas we've talked about tonight.
Okay, because moving Finger Lakes Times into a residential district kills the value of that building. And then you got the fire departments across the street in residential, which really they shouldn't be. And we really need to expand our downtown a little bit into the residential section,
yeah.
So it sounds like you're in favor.
of making it a little bigger.
Okay,
But
good.
right now, it's out there as a,
Yep.
I don't know, we probably should go through and take the names and put them into our, whatever they are, R1s, R2s, in that, just because is the yellow medium density zoning R2?
Yes.
Is that possible?
R1, R2, R3, or is it R4, or is it a multi, I don't know what these names translate into building types.
So
So-
medium density residential is a max of, I believe, 2.5 stories and up to 12 units by special permit.
So that's
But no
multi-unit.
commercial.
It's more a multi-unit than it is.
It's a small multi-unit. Yeah. Yeah.
Because residential really, 1, 2, 3 is residential. Once you get over that, you get into commercial residential. And I sit there and I look at the neighborhood I live in, or my ward, one of our problems is they're taking the single-family houses, they'll come in, buy them, they convert them to a double real easy, because those 1920s houses, you walk in the front door and you got the stairs going up, and you got a walkway through to the kitchen in the back, and all of a sudden you take a nice residential neighborhood and throw in a whole slew of rental, and it hurts the neighborhood. So do we need to, maybe when we're looking at zoning, look at some of these older neighborhoods that are mostly one family and stop, make them an R1, only can have one family houses, can't convert to twos anymore. And I don't know, you know, it's where you want to go in the long run, especially since we're still playing with short-term rentals, that,
Is that possible, or is that, does that violate any type of state laws or anything? The fact that you
what,
can't.
zone it R1?
If you zone it R1, does that really legally prevent a duplex being formed,
A new one.
a new one?
Okay, but, so we have a code that, a zoning code now that doesn't reference R1 particularly?
Right,
Right.
that's kind of what
And I
I'm
think, you know, I think where you're going is the key that's provided. I'm almost wondering if you can't have a water stamp over those areas saying they're MDR instead of going
Sure.
back and forth between the keys. And I think, you know, for the expediency of getting at least the first change in the zoning that took 6 years is to create a focus in the area that we're currently talking about now. And I like where you're going with that. You know, that could be the next step, definitely.
Well, I have no problem with making changes later, but we also have some pretty high-end housing that we could easily see 12 apartments in it that they're doing short-term rental on. You know, some
Well,
of those big houses over there would really easy break up.
The-
But
the-
if you could get $200 a night,
There are protections already in the new zoning, and when you become a little more familiar with them, because it does take a little bit of practice.
Yes.
Yes, sir, in the new chapter 350. The
Maybe interesting.
MDR, medium density, the low density, and the large lot residential have limitations built into them. And once you become a little more familiar with them, because again, it takes some practice to do that, it'll answer some of the questions that you have and some of the concerns that we may face later.
Good discussion, thank you.
spelled out pretty fast.
Okay, I'm gonna move on the agenda. Next is a
Your Honor,
supervi-
I just, sorry.
Sure,
Is
sure,
there,
Counselor.
is there to just continue the urgency thing, is there an
Tomorrow?
estimate of when we might see something on that?
Do we have other meetings this month scheduled?
16th is roll out of the budget, and then we have the October meeting.
So likely
So I
the
can have it
October.
ready for you for the October meeting. But I'd like to get you something quite early so that you can think about
Yeah.
it and come with questions, comments.
Do our
et cetera.
homework and come an intelligent conversation, huh?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Or at least input. Okay, we're gonna move on in the agenda. I don't see a supervisor in the audience for a supervisor update, so I'm gonna go on to consideration of meeting minutes for our August 7th and our August 22nd. We only had 2 meetings, so something's wrong here.
I know.
No, something's right.
Should only have one meeting.
I need a motion to accept the minutes of the meeting.
So moved.
Counselor Petropoulos, seconded by Counselor Peeler. Clerk, please call the roll on the minutes.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Carried.
Next, we have public comment. I just want to make sure I reiterate, public comment is a session for 3 minutes unless you asked ahead of time for more than 3 minutes. And our city clerk used to have this really polite alarm at the end. I heard it's changed slightly, but I would just ask that we respect that alarm. And when that goes off, to kind of end your conversation so that you don't have to be asked to end your conversation. My first one is the Reverend Dr. Philip Fleming on boards and commissions, but I don't see the Reverend tonight. So if he shows up, we'll give him a chance to speak later. Next is Bill Popoliski, and I hope I said that right, Bill.
Congratulations, you're one of the few that actually got it.
Okay.
So I'm probably
the voice in the wilderness here, but I think that
Bill, can I ask you, just gonna get the microphone so the people out, there you go, thank you.
the idea of changing anything for seniors is a laudable idea, but fiscally irresponsible and not consistent with the goals that I understood were put forward at the Bizzuto meeting that I went to a few weeks ago. Unless I misunderstand the number that was in the Finger Lakes Times, the value of this current exemption is $666,000. Is that correct? That was quoted in the Times, Finger Lake Times. And if you compare that against the real property tax anticipated for 2024, that's nearly 8% of the total anticipated tax for 2024. Now, because of the numbers of people that participated that you mentioned, I suspect that perhaps that number is not right. But nevertheless, the things that I heard at the meeting were, why does Geneva have problems? Greater percent of seniors in Geneva than the county and the town. Increasing numbers of seniors in the county. In Geneva versus the county and the town. Difficulty in attracting young people to buy and settle in Geneva. Why? Because the taxes are too high. It was pointed out that the relative tax burden in the county and the town was much lower than Geneva. And if you're going to increase the exemption on seniors, it's going to go on all of the people and the businesses that you want to attract to the city to improve its economic condition. Now, you say, and the number was tonight, that's a very small amount that anybody would pay, but it's going to, if you look at the comments that Ms. Hendricks made to the budget this year, she said, we have to be concerned about slowing tax revenue growth and uncertainty around overall economic conditions. She also published in the report that in 2022, tax revenues were $5.2 million, and in 2024, they were anticipated to be only $4.6 million. Now, maybe it's just a small amount now if you pass the exemption, but when the revenues continue to plummet, if they do, you're going to have to raise that amount of burden on everybody else to make up for what you decide today is a good thing to do for seniors. And I agree that it's a good thing to do for seniors. But if you want to spend money, if you want to give tax exemptions, give them to the people who want to buy homes in Geneva.
Sorry.
And that can be in the form of money to rehab existing homes or money to buy existing homes. Not seniors who probably need it, but I don't see how you justify it if that's what your goal is for the city of Geneva, as David outlined at the meeting at Bizzuto.
Next, I have Catherine Price from the BID.
Middle of the day. It was like middle of the day. You were at work. Oh, I couldn't. It was the middle of the day.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for listening to me again. I'm going to start and piggyback on economic development, what David has talked about this evening. You'll get to see me again next month before you go into budget because, of course, the bid has asked for funding to go ahead and continue with the work that we're doing. And I want you to remember that beautification is a fundamental piece of economic development, that if the city isn't clean and cared for, no one will want to live here or open a business here. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I'm okay with whatever we decide to do, but I do want to make sure that all the work that we've put in the last couple of years continues to stay where it is or progress. So after listening to David, I shifted up what I was going to say a little bit. to say that the bid has a commitment to growing businesses downtown, and of course that growth will equal a larger tax base, which is what we want. The growth spreads the tax burden and funnels more money into our community, which of course is another thing we want. So in order to work a little bit more closely with the City of Geneva Economic Development, the County Economic Development, the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development, we applied for a U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Agency grant. And I'm making our announcement formal at this point. We received a $25,000 grant from the U.S. government to obtain Placer AI, which will help us. I'll read through you what our goals are here. We'll be working with the City of Geneva and, of course, the county as well to use this tool to improve our abilities to access better tools for economic development. So our goals are going to be advanced purchasing pattern analysis. So we'll be able to provide detailed reports on purchasing patterns encompassing seasonal variations and day-of-the-week trends. So that this way we'll be able to share that information with prospective people coming into downtown and make us more appealing. We're going to look at foot traffic counts and store performance assessments, strategic planning support for small businesses, identification of community needs and service gaps. We'll measure the success of our efforts in community engagement and events, so that this way when we look at something like the Garlic Festival Cruise Night, how many people actually came? What were their demographics? How much did they spend? Where did they come from? Where did they go to? So that we can target our advertising and promotion of Geneva to the correct people. That will also include true trade areas. I'm sorry I can't speak tonight. Which will analyze, again, where our customers visit, live, and work, so that we can, again, when we're talking to developers, we can share that information and make our downtown and Geneva as a whole more attractive. The other component of this is that we'll be sharing the impact of AI on the development implementation of this project, which is an interesting thing. So I'll be able to keep you updated. If anyone has any questions or would like access to any of the reports, please do let us know. That's what we have it for. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is our city manager report.
Okay. Well, first off, our higher education campuses became a buzz the last couple of weeks, and today marks the first day for many of our school students to return to our grade schools. City crews have been working and partnering with all of the school districts as well as the higher ed institutions to continue to provide health and safety across the city. As our higher ed students returned, we appreciated their support in assisting with city tasks. You may have seen them helping paint some of our light poles, as well as assisting in our parks and other areas. And I do want to remind our new members of our community to remain mindful of the neighbors as they are part of this community now. On our GSCD campus, at the Geneva School District, we're excited to expand our SRO program this year in partnership with the school district. So Officer Perry has joined Officer Grenier for this academic year, so we will have 2 SROs on school campuses. And I also would be remiss not to thank our crossing guards who are helping our children get to school safely. We do have additional opportunities for crossing guards. If anyone is interested in taking on one of those positions, they can reach out to HR. We've already discussed the budget. Budget presentation will be on September 16th, but prior to that, the comptroller and I will be doing an overview on social media and other forums and recording it on our budgeting and how it's a Budget 101. We had about a few dozen people respond to a Budget 101 survey with some areas that they would like to know more about, suggestions they may have for our spending. And so we'll respond to some of those questions and provide an overview on how municipal budgeting occurs. Also on the budgeting side of things, earlier this year we talked about CashFest 3+1. That's a team that we engaged with to better understand how our city funds could be utilized differently to yield higher earning potentials. In the coming weeks, 3+1 will be working with us to issue a rate quote request. This request will go to a multitude of financial institutions to allow us to further understand what potential we may have for additional earnings. This data will allow the council to make a well-informed decision on how we should continue to invest our resources. Prior to that, though, the comptroller will be reaching out to our current provider to allow them to know, one, that we are issuing that request. We really want them to participate with that, and also to collect some additional information about the in-kind and other benefits that we have with that institution. They've been a long-standing partner, and we want them to be able to participate in the rate quote request, but also acknowledge what they do provide to the community. Property disposition, we've had some people ask about property sales for properties that have not yet been approved by council and how they can purchase those properties. There is a property purchase procedure online. In it, we outline a process where a party can put in a purchase offer that outlines the intended use of the property. Our property acquisition and disposition team meets. They make recommendations to council, and then council reviews those recommendations and moves forward. In 2024, our 2024 review will begin in October with a recommendation for any properties to be disposed of in 2025. So that will be coming forward to council in the near future. School tax bills, so it's not only back to school tax bill times. Payment of school tax bills are not processed by the city. They are processed by the county. Those tax bills can be paid at the county building. You need to enter that building, though, through the parking lot entrance, not where the DMV was. We are having many people come in and talk to us about their tax bills. It is a school tax bill, though. That is not a city function. And finally, a couple of final things. Vacancies and hiring. We're excited to welcome a new code enforcement officer. Dan Price joined our team last week and has rounded out the code enforcement team. And then Jennifer Sutton will be joining our team on September 23rd as the grant coordinator. And so all of those grants that we've discussed, Jennifer will be helping us with those. And then we also will be looking at bringing on additional assistance for our assessor's office with a shared position with the city of Canandaigua. So we currently share the assessor with Canandaigua, and we'll be sharing a tax clerk position that will support both municipalities. We're also currently recruiting for seasonal support at the rink, DPW, as well as for school crossing guards. And in the coming weeks, we'll be restarting the search for our safety coordinator, which was a position that we were going to pilot this year. Two final announcements. Halloween will be on October 31st, 2024. That is something that by charter we have to make sure we announce every year, so it will be held on Halloween. And I also have the pleasure of appointing James Anderson and James Engel to the Shade Tree Committee, so we'll appoint both of those people as a city manager appointment.
Thank you. Yeah, we used to have to do a resolution every year designating trick-or-treat night, so I'm glad we got rid of that. Next on the agenda is unfinished business. It's amendment to Resolution 48-2024, standard workdays for elected officials presented by our city clerk, Mrs. Tillison.
So this is an amendment to the resolution passed on July 10th. The record of activities result on that resolution was incorrect and has been updated to what it should be, which is 1.58. The error occurred because the calculation to determine Councilor Petropoulos' record of activities wasn't applied correctly. The state and legal verified 1.58 is correct.
Thank you. I need a motion. Councilor Peeler, seconded by Councilor Lavin. Thank you very much. Any discussion? Councilor Petropoulos?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote, just so you know.
Thank you. Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Brennan?
Aye.
Councilor Lavin?
Aye.
Councilor Peeler?
I don't think you have to, but yeah, aye.
Councilor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Councilor Gilat?
Aye.
Councilor Petropoulos?
Abstain.
Councilor Morocco?
Aye.
Councilor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Moving on to new business, a resolution declaring surplus of fire department equipment presented by Chief Parada.
Good evening. Simple resolution for you tonight, just declaring a couple items from the fire department surplus. One is a 2002 Pierce fire engine, and the second is for 25 unserviceable SCBA airbags.
Okay, I need a motion.
So moved.
Councilor Peeler, seconded by Councilor Petropoulos. Discussion.
So you're gonna auction the fire engine, and the other stuff is pretty much scrap?
We're going to auction, or send them both to auction company. They're not necessarily scrap. The air packs are not in service for us anymore. They have a 15-year shelf life or service life. They might be able to be used in industry or other factories work.
Councilor Brennan?
I'm just curious, Chief, what would be the value of the fire truck? Do you guess?
Whatever somebody will pay for it.
I'm sure.
Honestly,
Yeah,
it
I'm
depends.
just-
I think if your
Depends
house is
you
on
know,
fire, it's a different number.
Who's in need of one?
Uh-huh.
They can range from $10,000 to $100,000, but I think what we have probably more likely in the range of $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay, thank you.
Could be somebody from another state.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye. Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is a resolution, thank you, Chief. Next is a resolution amendment to the Rules of Order Procedure presented by you or me?
Our charter says me, but I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So what we have is a resolution amending the Rules of Order Procedure of the Geneva City Council. The approval of this resolution will amend the Rules of Procedure of the Geneva City Council. Background, the resolution updates Section 11 to reference local law number 4-2022 regarding remote participation in council meetings, and adds Section 12 to limit the use of non-city used electronic devices during city council meetings. The challenge with number 11 was it was very detailed in text and description of remote attendance. We have previously passed a local law that superseded Section 11, so that implements that. Number 12, the addition of number 12 is to restrict the use of electronic devices with the exception of computers assigned to each city councilor, mayor, and city manager at city council meetings, and any city-issued electronic devices. So I need a motion. Councilor Gilat, seconded by Councilor Petropoulos. Discussion. Councilor Lavin first, Councilor Peeler second.
I just, somebody could explain to me the thinking behind those of us who have to keep in touch with our businesses and care for kids and other things like that from using a phone here. Is there an upside to that, or somebody wants to explain what the problem they're curing with that?
Well, I think the challenge was, and I'll let other councilors speak to it because I know there was other input. I think the challenge was the distractions that have been caused by electronic devices in past city council meetings. And if you put it on silence or vibrate, and you get you could step out and always take that call outside of the meeting.
So you're not eliminating phones, you're just saying keep your buzzer down.
You keep your buzzer down, and if you need to pull your phone out or your electronic device, step outside the meeting and address it there. Councilor Peeler?
One of my number one complaints from constituents immediately following council meetings is how are the people behind the bench on their phones the entire meeting? And they wonder if they're present. Like they're asking me, isn't there rules against that, right? So I think there's a, what do they call it? There's a concept of appearances that we're here listening in the moment and not connected digitally. And I'm embarrassed when my phone vibrates and I throw it in the corner here. I do have concerns about personal devices in replacement of city-owned devices. So if you're on, for example, I'm on my Surface, and I'm on my Surface connected to my own Wi-Fi hotspot. I'm not connected to the city's Wi-Fi, so there's a firewall there. But I don't really like the equipment, no offense, all due respect, that the city provides for our meetings. It's also not de facto connected to the city's internet, so we're literally locked into this device as just a thing. So that's a concern I have. I also read that there was an area where it talked about debate and rules of order and abstaining from discussion and debate, were those revisions or were those always in there?
The only two revisions were the ones I just mentioned.
Okay. That's it. That's it.
Counselor Gilat.
I think just from past experience, being out there instead of here, I just think it helps our transparency if we're not looking at the phone while we're talking or during a meeting. Whether it could be harmless, it could be nothing, but when you're sitting over there, the first thing you're thinking of is who's contacting that council person. What are they telling them? I know it's kind of like far-fetched, but that's an impression a lot of people got the last 4 years out there. I just think it's good that with transparency, just not, except for, emergencies, a buzzer will go off, whatever, but not looking at your phone while your notes are on your phone, or et cetera. And maybe in that regards, maybe we need a little more functionality with our laptops here, so that if we want to send something to it, we can read, it's right there, it's visible, it's transparent. I know it's a way to do it, but I'm still haven't figured it out yet, so.
Yeah,
that's all.
you can access your email, or you can access the internet on the city supplied device.
Not always. I've had many a times where I can't connect. The Wi-Fi is not connected, and why it disconnects, I don't.
You won't have a problem in here.
I don't
It's all been
necessarily care.
corrected.
It's all you.
Counselor Lavin.
I think we're going overboard here with trying to control each other. We're all elected, and we have a relationship to the public. I actually get messages from people asking me to raise questions during the meeting from people who are out there watching it online. I think we're sounding like a bunch of old men here who don't know that the new technology is more transparency and more connectivity.
Yeah, there's a motion and a second. If anybody wants to offer an amendment, you're more than welcome, and that's Counselor Whitfield.
And sometimes I get texts pertaining to things like presenting stuff like at the end of the session when we have the chance to speak about things in the community. So instead of them getting sent to my email, they're getting sent to my text. So what do I do in that instance? That's what I don't agree with that. So
Yeah, I think it's solving no problem.
Counselor Peeler?
And I don't want to diminish our rules of order in any way, because I think they're important, and I've actually called for points of order a few times myself. But I don't really know how tied we are to actually follow these rules of order and what it might mean to our legislation other than our appearance to the public. I mean, for example, one of these rules of order is that when you recuse yourself from a vote or abstain from a vote, you're supposed to not participate in discussion or debate. And, I not to call anyone out, but Councilor Brennan had plenty to say about short-term rentals, even though he abstained. So we don't. These are just guides, right? We don't really have to follow these.
Number 9. Number 9 states, these rules of order procedure govern the conduct of the city council meetings. These rules are intended to expedite the transition of business at the city council in an orderly fashion and are deemed to be procedural only. Failure to strictly observe these rules should not affect the jurisdiction of the city council or invalidate any action taken at the meeting that otherwise conforms to law.
I think you just said it the fancy way I did.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's in there. It's already in there.
Right.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Steve, does this, I don't know, I could be hearing it wrong. So I'm out of town, I want to video into a meeting, I've already cleared it with everybody. I can't use my computer, I have to get a computer from the city, that I have to use city equipment. Is that what this is saying too?
That's a good question, because it wasn't intended to say that.
Right,
For
because if I'm flying
remote-
someplace, I don't want to be trucking
Yeah.
a city computer with me.
Remote attendance is covered under the local law. I'd almost have to go back to that local law.
Because in the past, I set it up, we
Yep.
get it all clear,
I'm
go
with
with
you,
IT.
yep.
I sit down with the computer and bingo, I'm not carrying this through airport security and stuff.
That's
It
the
was
Zoom
just a
thing.
question, yeah, but it,
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at the local law. I'm not sure. Further discussion. Okay.
they're getting drinks. They're getting drinks.
I'm going to ask for the clerk to call a roll, but to pause on one counselor who just stepped out will be back. So if you can start, and then we'll pause when we get to,
Counselor Brennan?
What's, the-
Oh.
clarification, please.
Sure.
What is it that we are voting on now, please? What's the roll
the,
call?
the
Exactly.
changing number 11 of the Rules of Board of Procedure to point to the local law,
Yep.
and number 12 to have electronic devices city provided at city council meetings.
Okay.
And
All
city
right. So,
council.
thank you. Just
Yep.
wanted to clarify.
Okay.
Nay is my vote.
Counselor Lavin?
No.
Counselor Peeler?
He's out for a minute.
Okay, I'll come back.
So linger.
Linger, I will linger.
I don't need a lawyer.
You want to keep going and come back to him,
Okay.
please?
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Nay.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
One more to go. Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
That
Sorry.
means- that
There's no
means
way to dry your hands in there, and I splashed it all
No
over
more
me.
computer for you, though.
I know, I'm willing to sacrifice
just
it
passed
for
it.
order.
Yeah, motion carried.
I'm a big
Thank
proponent
you.
of order.
Next, moving on to resolution setting public hearing for the 2025 budget presented by our city manager.
Yes, so this is a standard resolution as part of the budget process and as part of the charter documents. We have to set a public hearing to review the budget, and we have our standard precedent has been to set it for the meeting prior to the budget adoption, which is the October meeting.
Need a motion? Anybody?
Yeah.
Counselor Counselor Gilat, seconded by Counselor Petropoulos. Any discussion on setting the public hearing? Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is the addition to the agenda. It's a resolution proposing a public hearing for adoption of amended levels of real property tax exemptions for senior citizens under real property tax law, section 467. I need a motion?
This is public hearing, right?
Public hearing, yes.
I'll make that motion.
Counselor Grimaldi, seconded by
Second.
Counselor Peeler. Discussion on setting the public hearing. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco?
Aye.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Next is appointments to boards and commissions. Do we have any?
We have no appointments to note tonight, but as always, we always encourage people to sign up and apply for serving on a board. We need people for planning board, and we need people for zoning board.
Planning and zoning have openings?
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay, next is mayor.
I just wanted to add, and I'm sorry, Councilor Peeler, I haven't shared this yet, but we have openings on the IDA and LDC as well.
Great.
And those are applied through the same channels,
Yes.
but those are decided by those individual boards, correct, and then brought to council?
The boards bring a recommendation to council.
Right, we don't run those interviews.
Correct.
Correct, thank you.
I believe we have one on Board of Assessment review as well.
Yes, you do.
Okay, good. We got plenty of openings. Are all these on our website,
Yes.
these openings?
Yes, so there is a link on the city council page and the clerk's page, I believe, to apply. We're putting something out about IDA and LDC. We have applicants for several other boards we're working on scheduling interviews.
Come out and get involved. We could use it. All right, next is mayor and council reports. I'll start to my left with Councilor Gilat.
Thank you. The Police Budget Review Board did not meet this past month. They are going to meet this coming month, and I think they'll be pretty active with the budget season coming upon us. August bid events, Geneva Grows Native, the GBID collaboration with Cornell, IPM, NYPA, and on the canals, 4-H, was very successful with over 400 people stopping by the booth, getting seeds and taking walking tours. It was so successful, we were going to do another 4 weeks of the event through September and beginning of October. Wheels on Seneca, a classic car show and big co-sponsored event to benefit local veterans and veteran services. Pat O'Connor, Oaks Corners Fire, and BID raised over $7,000 this year. Our proceeds go directly to our local veterans, $4,600 more than last year. On that note, I couldn't attend because I did some catering jobs down on the lake and drove by. Very impressive. That car show was very impressive along the 5 and 20. Not that I'm throwing hints about cruising night, but anyway, I thought it was very impressive. It was really showy, so congratulations on that. The Glorious Garlic Festival was a great success. They say attendance was down, probably because they charged at the gate. That's speculation. But the people who came spent money and time at the festival and then shopped downtown. Well, that's a good thing. Head out this weekend. The first Friday's upon us. With an opening at the Dove Block and lots of participating downtown shops and restaurants. That's all I have.
Councilor Petropoulos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had the LDC meeting today. I think Director West actually mentioned a lot about it. The 30-second version there is we are looking to bring aboard a young Hobart student intern to help with marketing. We're going to try to basically combine the efforts of the LDC, the IDA, and bid for marketing purposes along with the city. Basically, we are shortly going to have an update on the strategic plan. We have one more meeting at the end of the month, and we should have a draft by then. As far as what's been going on in Ward 5, basically it started out with the big storm. I was down on Colt Street, watching the creek rise and go back down. Kudos to DPW for clearing out debris. I attended the Scott Bissell Memorial Block Party. That was a success, and again, that's an example of a neighborhood event where the neighbors actually put it on. Hopefully, as time goes on, the LDC will be more involved, and the resurrected neighborhood initiatives will help with that. I was pleased to attend the GPD Youth Academy graduation along with Councilors Morocco, Peeler, and Mayor Valentino, and Councilor Lavin provided the food for that. Thank you. That was made me proud. Let's see. We had this past weekend a three-way town hall meeting at the library with Councilors Gillot, Morocco, and myself. It was surprisingly well attended for our very first one. We largely discussed quality of life issues, passing the word, letting constituents know we are not only available, but willing to come out and talk, because the consensus among some seemed to be that council doesn't listen. Well, we do, and we will. So we're going to probably have another one. We'll try to do them quarterly, but we're going to have them certainly as needed. We're hoping to do another one maybe in November. We'll keep you posted on that. The LDC, I want to give them another thanks for approving payment of the cement, so it will be of no cost to the city. They're going to lay the slab for the bench I might have mentioned a meeting or two ago. The Masonic Lodge has, the Freemasons of New York State have a program called The Battle Within, which addresses veteran suicides. And we're going to have a bench down there. Hopefully, we'll take turns sitting. The Freemasons will sit there, and if any veterans want to come join us and talk, that's the idea. But there will be a bench. It'll be by the 9/11 memorial. The cement slab, if it's not already laid, it will be shortly, and the bench is on its way up. We hope to dedicate it on Veterans Day, and we invite the LDC and other officials to join us for that. Finally, there is a community event going on. It's Drumstock over at Lake Drum Brewery, and it's going to be this Saturday starting at noon. Promises to be a lot of fun, weather notwithstanding. I will be there. Come on down. Should be a lot of fun. And, get to know your neighbors. And with that, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilor Morocco.
I just want to piggyback a little bit on the town hall meeting that the three of us had. I want to thank both councilors at large for showing up. David West came, and I'd like to thank him for well, that's why I'm helping you out here. David West helped us provide a lot of information to some of our constituents that we might have had time, we might have had trouble conveying it properly because, you know, David knows it a lot better than us. So I thought we had a good turnout for what was expected. It was our first time. I hope people get the word out that, you know, we are approachable. All of us are very approachable. It doesn't matter what ward you're in, whether you're 4, 5, or 6. I don't care if you're in 3 or 2. It really doesn't matter. So, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised, and like I said, we're definitely going to do this more often, and I expect that we'll have a better turn, even more of a turnout, and I hope that people get the word. The people that were there go out and tell some of the people in their ward that, hey, these guys are here to listen. I think we got a pretty good group of people here. We have disagreements on things, but we got a good group of people here that are willing to work and discuss with everything, and I think we got that message across to our constituents. So that's all I have to say.
Councilor Whitfield.
I thank you all for inviting me to the town hall meeting because there were issues that needed to be addressed, that needed to be pinpointed, that's not normally addressed or pinpointed. So I appreciate that at the last minute. I wanted to bring up an issue on Center Street, which is part of the Foundry, I believe. There are few families that are appreciative of what the city has done for the Foundry, work that's been done, but there's also complaints that's causing damage to their properties as well. A past city council member, Mike Gramlin, reached out to me, and he stated that there were some issues that is causing some damage and some, flooding in the area. And we need to tackle these issues so that it doesn't cause more issues in the community pertaining to the flooding. I know it is a city issue, and he said he will be able to provide a lot of pictures and things from his past work and the current work to show the city that these issues have occurred, but we definitely need to help the families so that there isn't any more issues pertaining to this. That's all I have for tonight.
Councilor Grimaldi.
Housing Authority, Jeremy McCormick has taken over as president of the Housing Authority Board. They're continuing remodeling a lot of apartments. Director West had put in some grant money. They picked up grant money for charter homes. They're on their last few apartments over here on the corner, and they're trying to revamp everything to make it better. They have had a couple tenant problems, but they seem to have them under control. So they're doing pretty good over there.
Councilor Peeler.
The planning board did not meet last month. I don't have a report for the planning board. I did field several calls over the past month, mainly due to weather and debris specifically. And I received a couple calls from Brook Street and Lyceum Street residents about Brook Street Playground. And a couple families contacted me about Jefferson Avenue Playground. And the concern is specifically that the playground units are devoid of now their wood chips, and they've overgrown with weeds and vegetation. They're wondering when that is going to be scheduled to be replaced and or kind of brought back. And then another group of complaints were specifically about the dog walking or jogging paths that go around both of those parks. And I don't know if debris got moved into the walking paths and then turned into mulch and essentially became grass. And now the walking paths are overgrown in multiple areas of these parks. So just kind of concerns about when that's going to be on the agenda or on the schedule of things. If it's cyclical, this maintenance, hopefully it'll be next spring so that we can bring those back. And a couple residents noted that they felt that they've never seen them maintained since they were built. And that's a concern for me personally. I think we talk about this when we talk about our city grants and how we do our upkeep, that we can, what we build, we need to maintain, or it just doesn't look like we're spending the tax dollars money wisely. Especially if these things are essentially white elephants. You know, we get these gifts, can we afford to keep them? Right, and I think that is actually the fable of the white elephant. So I'm just hoping I can get some of that information from city staff so I can pass that on to those concerned residents to let them know that we know this and we care and that these things will be fixed or addressed. Thank you.
Councilor Lavin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, to beat the dead horse, if we had a finance committee, I would bring these things up, but I think this is the only place now. But after the L&B letter recently, I started looking into how we're handling our money as a city, and my take on it is that we seem to have $17 million sitting in a checking account at L&B, not getting any interest, and it's been like that for at least 8 months, which costs us $35,000 to $50,000 a month in interest. And I think when we go into the budgeting season, I think we need to look at how we're handling that money and why we're keeping it out of money market accounts that are used routinely by other governments to bring in these things. I also had, during the visit, the new students arriving on campus, I walked the campus and thanked the police officers and city employees who were working there. I also ran across somebody who I assumed was working on sewer problems because of the storms. It turned out it was a company that we've hired to shoot pictures.
Television.
They said to me they were curious as to why they were still doing this because they did it 2 or 3 years ago, gave us the videos, and they seem to have been lost. That's the report that the employee gave to me, that he was back doing the work again. And these are things being discussed out there, and I'm sure if we had a DPW committee meeting, we could have taken care of it then, but we're not. I also asked last meeting for if we could get a monthly touch base on overtime, and I don't see that happening yet in terms of how much overtime is being worked each month, how much is pre-approved, and how much is just occurring with no report to us. I also wanted to announce that at the mayor's direction, I've arranged a meeting with the town of Geneva on the 16th of September to start discussing the potential places where the city and town may be able to work together and save money for both sides and have those discussions. It's going to be the 16th at 4 p.m. at Town Hall. Obviously, if others would like to come, they'd be welcome. If we get over the open meetings requirement, we'll have to, people who want to attend that will have to announce it as a public meeting and let people attend it. But I know Mr. Brennan and I are going to go. Others are welcome if they'd like to let us know. I'll be putting out an agenda for the areas of review with the town. They've approved some of them so far for discussion. And news from afar, the city of Barcelona, Spain recently pulled all 700 of its short-term rentals because the short-term rentals were destroying, in their view, the nature of the community and injuring their tourist efforts. So worth keeping our eye on as our licensing is about to start. Thank you.
Councilor Brennan.
I've got good news and I've got bad news. Here's the good news. There's 50 trees available to city residents that can be placed in the city right-of-way, but they have to be maintained by that homeowner. But the trees are free, and the Shade Tree Committee would really very much like them to be distributed. So I'm asking each counselor here to, as they drive around and talk to their neighbors and whatnot, just see if there might be some possibilities to plant these trees. Because a lot of work went into growing them, maintaining them, and I, by the way, was part of that work. So let's see if we can find 50 new homes. And here's some better news. Tom Burrell gave the city $275 for firewood sales, and cracks me up, firewood sales in August, Yeah, so
It's like the Energizer Bunny, he doesn't stop.
that's right. Here's the bad news. The bad news is the ZBA did meet, but was unable to convene a meeting because of insufficient attendance. There were only 3 people present, not 4, and there's only 4 people altogether on that board. So that applicant was very gracious and agreed to postpone the meeting till September 10th, and we're hoping that all 4 people will be there. But it lacks a chair, and it needs to have a good deal of kind of grooming and coaching to get up to speed. We have 2 new members there. So as Bill would say, again, try to network, keep your ears close to the ground, see if there aren't some individuals that you might think would make a good fit. And that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I also, as Councilor Petropoulos mentioned, attended the Youth Police Academy, and I just want to commend the pilot program that was initiated. Lieutenant Bielowitz was the one that spearheaded that. He did a great job. He had great attendance. There was a lot of enthusiasm. And to me, it's just a community builder. That relationship between the police department and our youth of our community is huge. And I think this went a long ways to do that. So I'm looking forward to that program expanding in the future. And, just watching the police officers that were involved in that process and the enthusiasm with the young adults, I think it was just fantastic. So I'm looking forward to more of that. I know our city assessor probably got hit like I did, but probably way worse than I did. The tax bill that everybody received is not the city tax bill, and our city managers mentioned where to pay it, but I don't have any leverage on your school tax. Unfortunately, I can't do anything about that, so just reach out to your school board if you have concerns about that. There was increases in the tax rate, and I saw some considerable increases in the overall tax, and I think everybody that sits here on this board has actually seen that increase also. The last thing I have, and it's just a request for attendance, and that's a week from today at 10 a.m., is our 9/11 memorial. So please come out in memory of that, those who gave their lives and those who were impacted by that, and I think we're still seeing the impacts of that to this day. It was quite some time ago in 2001, so here we are 23 years later, and we will have quite a bit of attendance, quite a ceremony down on our lakefront at the 9/11 Memorial a week from today at 10 a.m. So I need Councilor
Can I
Whitfield.
say one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to personally thank Officer Tapscott for his service working as a SRO. He isn't one this year. I know he was great with the kids as well as my child, but I wanted to thank him personally for what he has done in the past, their program as a SRO, and also with his program Taps Kicks, helping kids in the community who's less fortunate. So I commend him for that.
Thank you, Councilor. Yeah.
Counselor, I also want to point out that he was among the officers and firefighters who gave out out of our van 600 pieces of ice cream on Thursday night last week, all over town.
Oh, my
It was a
kids.
great moment for the end of summer, looming of school.
Great community building. It's good
Yeah.
to hear. We always hear a lot of negatives. It's nice to hear these positives, which is huge. I did get a phone call from Ms. Bev Fryer, who was who chased me down after 3 or 4 phone calls. It was interesting, but she couldn't commend staff enough. Department of Public Works, Director of Annuity, in the efforts to address the issue she had. And I like hearing all the concerns of the community, and it's tough sometimes when you get complaints all the time. It's great to hear the positive input from the community, so thank you very much for that. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilor Peeler, seconded by Councilor Gilat. All in favor?